I found a letter from my dead mother, in which she wrote that my father killed her husband, but she hid it to save the family. I'm 33. I live in Seattle. I work as an archivist at the city library. My job is to find things that have been lost. Old letters, forgotten files, missing names. The irony is that the biggest secret I found wasn't at work, but at home, in a drawer of my mother's that I hadn't opened since she died. Her name was Elizabeth. She died of cancer 3 years ago. She was 61. We were close. She raised me alone after my father, Richard, left when I was 8. I thought he just abandoned us. My mother never talked about him. If I asked, she would say, he wasn't a good man, but we survived without him. And that was enough. We lived modestly, but peacefully. She worked as a librarian, loved to read, make soup, sit on the porch with coffee. She was always peaceful, even when she was sick, even when she was dying. And then, when I was sorting through her things to rent the house, I found a letter, not in the archives, not in a box of memories, but in a secret place under the bottom of an old dresser. Yellow, crumpled, handwritten. Dear James, if you're reading this, then I'm gone. And maybe you found this letter because you're looking for answers. So I'm going to tell you the truth that I never could tell you in my life. Your father is not Richard. He died when you were 6 months old. His name was Michael. He was a teacher, and he loved me. But Richard, he was my husband, and he found out I was pregnant by someone else. He came to our house that night. He was drunk. He broke down the door, and he and Michael started fighting. I don't remember who took the gun, but I remember the shot, and the way Michael fell. Richard said it was self-defense. Nobody saw anything. I believed him, or pretended to believe him. We buried Michael as died in a car accident, and Richard took you in as his own, to keep the family together, to not lose you. A year later he left, not because he had become better, but because he couldn't look at me, at you, for what he did. But I never told you the truth, not because I was afraid, but because I didn't want you to carry this pain, so that you could just be a son, and not the son of a murderer. If you're reading this, you have a right to know who you are, where you're from, and why I kept quiet. Forgive me, not for what I did, but for not being able to say in my lifetime. With love, Mom. I sat on the floor, holding the letter, and couldn't figure out whether it was a lie, whether it was the truth, whether it was an attempt to justify myself before death. But I knew one thing. I didn't know my father, not the one I thought was my father, not the one I hated, and someone who didn't even exist in my story. And now I had to decide whether to look for Richard, whether to find traces of Michael, whether to simply fold up the letter and say, this is not my story. I couldn't put the letter down, not because I was afraid, but because it changed everything. My name, my past, even my face in the mirror. I started looking, not for Richard, not for Michael, but for evidence. My mother had worked at the Seattle Public Library for 30 years. She had access to the archives, and she never threw anything away. I found an old chest in the basement, with newspapers, clippings, envelopes. And there, among the discount ads at the coffee shop, were clippings about a car accident. Young man killed in nighttime crash on Highway 99. Police say car lost control, hit a tree. No injuries. Name of deceased, Michael T. Harper, 34 years old. History teacher at middle school number 12. The date is February 17th, 1991. I was 6 months old at the time. I checked. Michael's photo was in his profile in the school archives. Tall, dark hair, smile. In the same location of the mole on my neck as mine. But something didn't add up. I called the police station. I explained that I was looking for information about a 1991 car accident. The operator said, the case is closed. But there is a note. Witness reported a conflict before the accident. A man in a black coat. A scream. Then a shot. But the witness did not show up for questioning. The file is attached to the accident report. Who was the witness? Not specified. But the phone number is your mother's old address. I fell silent. She was a witness. And she never said. I kept looking. Through the school database, I found a colleague of Michael's, a woman named Lindsay Martin. She was retired, but I got her number. That's James Harper, I said. Michael's son. Silence. Oh my God, she said. I thought you didn't know. Why? Because your mother, Elizabeth, she said you would grow up thinking of Richard as your father. That was better for you. That Michael. He was a wonderful man. But he died. And that's all you need to know. But he didn't die in a car accident, I said. He was killed. I know, she said quietly. I was there. Not close. But I heard a scream. I saw Richard leave the house. How he was shaking. How he said, it was self-defense. And then he and Elizabeth drove off, and the next day, they said Michael had died in an accident. And you didn't do anything. What were we supposed to do? She said. She was pregnant. He's the father of the child. And if we had talked, what would have happened to you? Who would have raised you? But that's a lie. I said. He killed a man, and she helped him cover it up. She chose you, Lindsay said. Not betrayal. Not revenge. And you. And maybe that was the only thing she could do. I hung up the phone. I couldn't breathe. I sat there thinking, can you love someone who was involved in covering up a murder? Can you respect a mother who kept her son but lost the truth? And then I found another letter. Not from her. From Richard. It was in an old diary that belonged to my mother. No envelope. Just tucked between the pages. Elizabeth. I can't take it anymore. Every time I look at him, I see Michael. I see his eyes. His smile. And I understand. I killed him. Not because he was bad, but because I was weak. And broken. I don't deserve you. I don't deserve him. And I can't be a father to a boy who doesn't even know who his real father is. I'm leaving. Not because I'm leaving you, but because I can't look at you and not see that you chose me, even though I know what I did. I'm sorry. If you ever can. I read it 3 times. And in that moment I realized, this is not just a story about murder. This is a story about choice. About how sometimes people do terrible things. Not out of evil, but out of fear. And others hide them. Not out of lies, but out of love. I couldn't leave it like this. Not because I wanted revenge, but because I couldn't live with the question. Who am I? Whose blood is in me? Am I the son of a murderer or the son of a victim? I found Richard through a retirement database. He lived in a small house on the Oregon coast. Not in a city, not in a village, by a lonely lighthouse, in a house that looked like someone had left it and never returned. I had arrived without warning, not because I was afraid he wouldn't answer, but because I was afraid he would, and I wouldn't know what to say. He was working in the garden, old, gray-haired, with a back bent with age. When he saw me, he wasn't scared. He wasn't surprised. He just put down his shovel. You look like him, he said. Michael, but you raised me, I said, so I'm probably a bit like you. He nodded. He called into the house. Inside, it's quiet. No TV, no radio, just old books, nature photos, and one frame of me as a child. I'm 5 years old. I'm on the porch. I'm laughing. Did you come to find out the truth? He asked. I already know, I said. I found my mother's letter, and your letter to her. I know that you killed Michael, and that she helped you cover it up. He sat down. He didn't argue. Yes, he said. I killed him. Not because he was bad, but because I couldn't accept that she loved someone else. That the child I was supposed to raise wasn't mine. But you took me in. Yes, he said. Because she said, it's the only way to keep you. If the police find out, they'll put you in foster care. And I don't want to lose you. And I agreed. Not because I wanted to be a father, but because she asked me to. And you just accepted it. No, he said. I didn't accept it. I live with it. Every time I looked at you, I saw his eyes, his smile, and I knew. I killed a person who had a right to live, and you had a right to have a real father. Then why did you leave? Because I couldn't look at her anymore, he said. She chose me, even though I knew what I had done. And that was the worst part. Not that I killed, but that she forgave me, and stayed, and I didn't deserve it. And me? You were a child, he said, and you were innocent. But every time you said Dad, I felt like I was stealing something, that I was stealing his memory, and giving you a lie. But you were with me. Yes, he said. But I wasn't your dad. I was a shadow, and I couldn't take it anymore. I was silent. I didn't know what I was feeling. Not anger. Not regret. Something between them. Something heavy. Why didn't you ever say? Because she asked for it, he said. And because I didn't want you to carry this pain. For you to think, my adoptive father killed my real father. That's too much for a child. But I'm an adult now, I said. And I have the right to know who I am. Yes, he said. And now you know. But I'm not asking you to forgive me. I don't deserve it. I'm just glad you were alive. And that she raised you. Without me. I stood up. I don't know if I can call you anything. But I'm grateful that you didn't disappear completely. For leaving a letter. For not letting me think of you as a hero. I wasn't one, he said. But I try not to be a monster. And maybe that's all I could do. I walked out. not looking back. But as I got into the car, I heard him say, "He was a good man. Your real father. And he would have loved you." I nodded and drove away. And in that moment I understood. This is not the end. This is the beginning of putting myself together from the fragments of two stories. And deciding, am I the son of a murderer? Or the son of a victim? Or simply someone who has decided to live with the truth? I didn't know if I had the right to go there, but I knew I had to. Michael's grave was in the Seattle City Cemetery, in the same part of town where my mother had once worked. I found it through the archives. A simple headstone. A name. Dates. Neither loving son nor loyal friend. Just Michael Travis Harper, 1957 to 1991. Teacher. Husband. Just. I stood there, not knowing whether this was the end or the beginning. In my hand was a letter. Not long. Not dramatic. Just words I couldn't say to anyone alive. Dad, if that word could be used for someone I never knew, it was for you. I've only just learned the truth now. Not because someone wanted to hide, but because they want to keep me. But now I understand. To keep is not to hide. Sometimes to keep is to let the memory exist. I don't know what you were like, but I know that you were a teacher, that you loved my mother, that you died when I was 6 months old, and that your blood is in me. I have your eyes, your way of laughing, even your handwriting. I found your old notes in the school archives. And when I look at them, I see myself. I don't know if I should live with you. Would I be happier? But I know one thing. You had the right to live, and I had the right to know who you were. I don't blame you for what happened. I blame fear, betrayal, weakness, but not you. And I want you to know, I live. I am honest. I love. And I remember. Even if you didn't know me, I know you now. With love, your son, James. I placed the letter on the tombstone. Next to it is a white stone that I found near my mother's house. She always said, "This is from our garden. The first flowers he planted grew here." I sat on the bench next to it. I didn't cry. I just looked at the name. And for the first time in my life, I felt, I'm not alone. Even in solitude. Even in pain. An hour later, an elderly woman came up. She was holding a small bouquet. "Are you Elizabeth's son?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "I'm Mary. Michael's friend. I come once a month. He was a good man." My mother said the same thing. She loved him, she said. Not because he was perfect, but because he was honest. And when she got pregnant, he said, "I'll be with her, even if it's hard." But Richard, he wouldn't let that happen. "Did you know?" "Yes," she said. "But there was nothing I could do. The police wouldn't listen." And she said, "If you talk, they'll take the baby." And I didn't say anything, because I didn't want you to lose everyone. "But I lost him," I said. "Yes," she said. "But now you found him. And that means something." She laid down the flowers. She looked at me. "You look like him, especially when you smile." I smiled. And in that moment I realized, this isn't about loss. This is about coming back. Not him. And me, to who I am. A week later I brought the photo. Not with Richard. Not with my mother. With Michael. An old one, from the school archives. He's standing by the blackboard, smiling. I framed it, and hung in my office. When my wife asked, "Asterisk, who is this?" "Asterisk," I said. "My father. Not the one I thought was my father. And the one I chose to remember." And she nodded. She didn't ask anymore. Because she understood. Sometimes the truth isn't what's said first. It's what's found last. 6 months passed. I didn't know if I had forgiven her. Not because I didn't want to, but because forgiveness is not a one-time decision. It's a process. Like memory. Like love. I started writing. Not for publication. Not for therapy. But for myself. A story. About Michael. About Richard. About her. About how one night destroyed 3 people and saved one. And then one evening, as I sat by the window, rainy, quiet, I closed my eyes and heard her voice. Not in reality, but in memory. Like when she made soup, sat on the porch, read aloud to me. "You found me," I said. "Yes," she answered in her imagination. "But you found yourself too. I don't know who I am yet." "You are the one who chose the truth," she said. "Even when it destroys. You didn't run away. You didn't accuse. You didn't do what we did. You just found. But why didn't you tell me?" "Because I was a mother," she said. "Not a judge. Not an avenger. I was a mother who saw a child in front of her. And I decided it was better for her to think I was a liar than for her to live with the pain I couldn't bear. But I could bear it. Maybe, she said. But I couldn't risk it. I didn't want you to look at me and see a murderer. For you to think, asterisk, my mother helped cover up a murder. Asterisk. This is too much for a child. And now, you're an adult now, she said. And you have the right to decide who you are. Not as the son of a murderer. Not as the son of a victim. But as someone who chose to remember. I opened my eyes. Rain was beating against the window. I looked at the photo of Michael. Then at the old photo of my mother holding me in her arms. And in that moment I understood. She was not a heroine. She was not a traitor. She was a mother who chose her child, even at the cost of the truth. And Richard was not a monster. He was a man broken by jealousy, and then broken by guilt. And he didn't run away from his family. He ran away from himself. And Michael, he was my beginning. And I decided, I will not bear his name. I will not change my last name. But I will carry his memory, as proof that he existed, that he loved, that he had the right to live. A month later, I went to the school where he worked. I asked permission to install a small memorial plaque. Michael Harper, a teacher who taught honesty. His story was hidden, but his influence remains. The principal agreed. The students helped. And when we opened the plaque, I put a photo of me smiling next to it. The caption, his son, who decided to know the truth. I don't know if I will ever be able to say, I forgive, but I know that I will say, I remember. And that, in fact, is enough. Because family is not about blood. It's about who decides to stay, who decides to tell the truth, who decides to love, even when it hurts. And now I've decided. I'm staying. For her. For him. For myself.